This is the 9th problem in the QHack 2023 Quantum Coding Challenges, and this one is entitled Tick Tock Block. And what we're being asked to do in this problem is we're given two values, one that represents the hour of the day and one that represents the minutes of the day. And we are to encode these hours and minutes in the Bloch sphere as state vectors for two separate qubits. So here basically we're told that if one of this represents the hour when it's, let's say, 12 o'clock, that will be state 0. And when it's 3 o'clock, it will be state minus. And when it will be 6 o'clock, state 1, and so on and so forth. Same for the minutes. So if it's like 15 minutes past the hour, it will be state minus. If it's half an hour past the hour, it will be state 1. 45 minutes will be state plus. So what this means is that we need to implement some gate that would take the state vector of, let's say, the qubit that represent the hours and rotate it counterclockwise about the y-axis, right? So that will be an RY gate, and sorry, not counterclockwise, clockwise. But in the Bloch sphere, clockwise means that it will go in the opposite angle as what the RY gate will implement, right? If we apply an RY gate with an angle of pi/2, that would rotate from state 0 to state plus. But what we want here is that if we apply, let's say, pi/2, it ends up in state minus, right? So we want this to rotate clockwise in this plane. To do that, let's go ahead and go into penny lane and start coding this problem. So as always, the first thing we do is we import penny lane and numpy, and we just need to define a device that is going to have two qubits, one for the minutes and one for the hour. And in this problem, we have to pass this as a list that specify each one of them. And we're going to define our function, call it time, which is going to take the hour and the minute. So all we need to do is really implement an RY gate that is going to, as we said, rotate clockwise, which it will mean applying a negative angle in the CX plane, so around the y-axis. And then the angle that we need to apply for, let's say, the wire's hour will be, well, if around the clock we have a total of 12 hours, and around that circle we also have a total of 2 pi, well, we need to take 2 pi and divide it by 12, right? And then multiply that by the hour. And then similarly for the minutes, all we need to do is exactly the same, but the wire we're going to apply this to is the minute wire. And if in that 2 pi circle we have 60 minutes, well, we need to then divide by 60, not by 12, and just specify here minute. And then here we're asked to return the probability vector, but let's first return the state to make sure that we are implementing this correctly. So if we just run this and then we call this time and we pass let's say 3 o'clock, right? So 3 for hour, 0 for the time, and we just print that output. We get, as we can see here, state minus for the hour and state 0 for the minutes, right? So we got, if we see here, this is 1/√2, 0, 0, and minus 1/√2, 1, 0. That means that we have state minus on the first qubit and state 0 on the second qubit. And that is exactly what we were asked to do, right? So at 3 o'clock, we should be pointing in state minus. And if we were to change that to, let's say, 3:30, right, it will be state 1, right? So we get almost 0 here. And then state minus on the first qubit, and then state 1 on the second qubit. We know this is working correctly, so all we need to do now is here return the probabilities on both wires. So the wires hour and minute. And then if we now print 12 o'clock, so 12,0, and let's re-execute this, we get a probability of 1 for state 0, 0, which is what we expect, right? One thing we can do to be completely certain that this is working right is we can, let's change this back from probabilities to state. And if you have Qiskit installed, we can, from Qiskit quantum info, import state vector. And then we can plot this in the Bloch sphere. So for example, we can do state vector, and we pass the output of this penny lane function, and we can draw it in the Bloch sphere. So since we have 2 qubits, it's going to draw 2 separate Bloch spheres, one for the hours, one for the minutes. So for 12 o'clock, we can see here that the hours and the minutes are pointing both in state 0, which is what we want. Let's say 3 o'clock, it will be the hours pointing in the state minus, and minutes pointing in state 0. And then we can do the same thing for 3:30. Now the minutes are pointing down, so 1:30 will be, pointing in the right direction in this clock. And we can try different things, like 9:45 should both point in the plus state. All right, I hope this was helpful, so let me know if you have any questions.